Hi, welcome to Reedy Creek Baptist Church. If we haven't met before, my name is Robbie and I'm one of the pastors here. In just a short while, David will be continuing our series as we read through the entire New Testament over 90 days. David's been a bit unwell this week, and as I film this, he's still going to preach, but if it's not David, well, then you'll know why. He's been unwell. But regardless of who it is, if it's him or someone else, I truly hope that you are blessed by the time that you spend with us this morning.
You
It's announcement time. There's not a lot of announcements this week, only a couple. First of which, we had our members meeting a couple of weeks ago. For those of you who were unable to attend, the main things that were spoken about were Reedy Creek Baptist, the process that we're taking in developing a new church vision, and also the process we're taking in updating and maintaining really our facility here at the church. The minutes will be available shortly. They've just got to get okayed through the leadership team, and then they'll be available, and we'll let you know when they are. The only other thing I was going to bring to your attention this week was that on Mondays at the op shop at 9:30 a.m. we've had a bit of a ladies' coffee time. Anyone from the church is welcome to come, and there's quite a good number at go. So if you're available at that time and you want to mix with some other people from church, get to know them a little bit more, have some fantastic coffee at the op shop, then you're absolutely welcome to come along. 9:30 every Monday morning at Reedy Care. It's been pretty cold this week. I took a screenshot with 4 degrees, and I didn't think that was meant to happen on the Gold Coast. So what we need are some winter warmers. And we're going to be doing those again on Sunday mornings throughout winter. And first up on the 26th of June, Jim Winter is going to be leading some old-fashioned games after church. So we'll remind you closer to the date, but it'd be great if people can hang around after church on that date. It's good fun. Egg and spoon races, sack races, whatever Jim Winter comes up with. It's always a surprise when he's in charge.
We are going through a series called Jesus the Game Changer. And for many, Jesus has been a game changer for you. Someone has made Jesus' last words their first priority and have either shared the gospel with you or invited you to a church or youth group or other means. 4 weeks ago, Robbie launched this series, encouraging us to make Jesus' last words, to make disciples to the ends of the earth, our first priority. 3 weeks ago, we looked at Paul's incredible conversion and how Jesus told him to take his last words to the non-Jews, the Gentiles. 2 weeks ago, we looked at the early church and the church throughout its 2,000 years of history, that wherever it was proactive in taking seriously Jesus' last words, hardships and even persecutions would often follow. And last week we touched on Bible translation as one of the key missionary priorities of the last few centuries. The motivation to see the Bible translated into every tongue and tribe and nation has taken people to the ends of the earth. One of the great challenges that faced these translators was the challenge of crossing the cultural divide. And this is our topic for today, learning to cross the cultural divide. Most of us have watched that classic Aussie movie, The Castle. It's got some of those great and now famous sayings. Every time I hear these sayings, I just smile or laugh. However, have you ever watched this movie with people from other countries? I have. Lisa and I would be laughing away, and our overseas friends, they weren't. They don't get our humour, our sarcasm and our culture. We have a culture. They have a culture. For Bible translators and missionaries who live in other countries, understanding another culture and their words is so crucial. In the 1960s, Don Richardson spent several frustrating years among the Sauri tribe in Western New Guinea. He had come as an anthropologist and missionary, hoping to bring the Christian message to a nearly Stone Age tribe. But his message kept colliding with the tribe's belief system. Christian values of love and forgiveness had no appeal to this tribe, for they held up deceit as the highest of virtues. They saw no reason to change their pattern of cruelty and cannibalism. In fact, when Richardson told them the story of Jesus, only one incident sparked their interest: the story of Judas's betrayal. To this tribe, Judas was a genuine hero. He had cleverly entered into the trusted inner circle of the disciples before turning against Jesus. Every time Richardson tried to share Christ with the tribe, the attempt just failed. Finally, after watching the 14th bloody battle fought outside his home, Richardson reached the end of his patience. He decided to leave New Guinea, despite the tribe's plea for him to stay. Just before Richardson left, the tribe and their deadly enemies staged an elaborate ceremony in front of his home. It was their final effort to convince the missionary to stay. The entire village had gathered to watch this event. The Sawi chief seized his 6-month-old child, holding him up high in the air, and carried his son over to the enemy and to their chief, and gave him to the enemy. A member of the tribe then explained to Richardson that the enemy tribe would rename the baby and rear him as one of theirs. Then the same thing happened to the Swahi tribe. The other tribe's chief came and offered his son to the tribe. Richardson knew that the tribe just could not be fully trusted at all, since any action might be considered as an elaborate plan of deception. But then someone explained to him about the peace child, a chief giving his own son to his enemies. That profound, that painful act would overcome all suspicion. By mutual agreement, as long as the peace child lived, no wars could be fought between the two tribes. Something then clicked in Don Richardson's mind as he watched this spectacle. At last, he had found an analogy, a parallel story built into the lives of this culture that could convey the message of a forgiving and loving God. He gathered members of the tribe around him and started to tell him about God's peace child. God has sent his own son, Jesus, to live among his enemies, to make peace with humanity. That was then. Today, according to Wikipedia, the population is 4,800 of this tribe, and most of them today are Christians. It all started because someone bothered to learn the language and customs of another culture and related it back to the gospel of Jesus Christ. To communicate with others, we have to connect with them. We do this by looking, listening, and connecting things in a way that they will understand. We see this in the life of Jesus, such as found in Mark chapter 1, verses 16 to 18. And it says this: One day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, "Come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people." And they left their nets and at once and followed him. In this passage, we find Jesus walking by the sea, the same place we find fish and fishermen. As Jesus looks out, he sees two brothers he knows from the village, Simon and Andrew. They are casting their nets out to catch fish. Mark makes it very clear to his readers, for they fished for a living. This was their job. Jesus calls out to them, "Come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people." Jesus knows who they are and what they do, and the invitation to follow him is intimately connected to their present reality as fishermen. Jesus connects with these people in order to communicate his message in a way that they understand. Notice that he doesn't use the phrase fishers of men with others to whom he offers the opportunity of new life. When Jesus meets the Samaritan woman at the well, who is thirsty and ashamed, he doesn't offer to make her a fisher of men. He presents her with the opportunity to never be thirsty again, and he restores her credibility within the community. She took the good news to those in her town, and many more became believers. Jesus connects to communicate the good news and the opportunity to follow him. The early Christians also connected to communicate. The New Testament provides two accounts of the genealogy of Jesus. One is found in the Gospel of Matthew and the other in Luke. Matthew, who is writing primarily to a Jewish audience, starts his genealogy with Abraham, the father of the Jewish faith. Whereas Luke, we find, he's writing to a broader audience, and he starts with Adam and the beginning of the human race. The Apostle Paul was a missionary who entered into other cultures, learnt what they believed and practiced and worshipped. Exactly 4 years ago, I had the wonderful opportunity to visit some of these places. The last few days have been pretty special for me. Over the past 35 years, I have read and studied the Apostle Paul and his journeys and his various New Testament letters. The last few days, I have been to the very cities where he spent time. For example, in Corinth, I was there and on the judgment seat where he was put on trial. In Athens, I stood on the very rock, Mars Hill, where he preached. And today I'm in Ephesus, where he preached in this very theatre. It's been a pretty special time for me. Today, Mars Hill is just that. It's a hill. When I was walking several hundred metres above it at the Acropolis, my father-in-law, Graham Bagley, a wonderful Christian man, pointed out to me that down there is Mars Hill. And I couldn't believe it, and so I went straight away down there, and to stand on the same spot where Paul spoke a mighty message in Acts 17, where he referred to the altar of the unknown God, and from this he spoke about the good news of Jesus Christ. Crossing the cultural divide and trying to connect with an entirely new people group was especially challenging when missionaries began to take the gospel to China. The first missionaries to China came in quite early in the church history, sometime in the 7th century. They came via the Silk Road, an inland network of roads that connected the east with the west, right across the Euro-Asian continent. The next record that we have of missionary involvement in China comes in the 16th century when the Jesuits came to China via the sea. Then 300 years later, Hudson Taylor arrived in Shanghai and began the China Inland Mission. China, for most of Christian history, has been a representation of the ends of the earth. The journey to get to China via land and sea was long, hard, and very dangerous. Culturally, socially, and politically, it was worlds from what they knew, and so as they faithfully followed the command of Jesus, they found themselves confronted with a huge cultural divide. However, crossing the cultural divide to take the message to the ends of the earth is something we will all face. If we're going to share the good news of Jesus anywhere and with anyone, we too are going to face challenges of crossing the cultural divide. So where will we face it? Perhaps it's understanding the culture of a work colleague who is from another country. Perhaps it's crossing the generation divide between you and your kids or your grandkids. Perhaps you cross the cultural divide as you consider new technology and social media and the 24-hour news cycle and how it's shaping the minds and attitudes of Aussies. Perhaps you'll have to do work to cross the cultural divide when you're confronted with the growth of secularism and the changing state of faith in Australia. So, what can we learn about those who have crossed various cultural divisions? First, understand the culture. As Robbie touched on last week, learning the language is a crucial step in taking the gospel message to the ends of the earth. In order to speak and communicate truth, we have to learn and understand the language of the group that we're going to. This process is also part of the crucial step of understanding a culture. When I was a teenager, I was confronted with many cultures that I wasn't used to, such as the time when I helped lead a kids' holiday club in Warramaloo in Sydney, back in the early 1980s when that place wasn't considered trendy. And one of the kids that attended this week of a kids' club, a holiday club, was a person who was both deaf and blind. That poor child. Her culture was so different to mine. How was she going to take part? How was she going to hear and see what we were doing and what we were presenting? I had no idea as to how to communicate to this deaf-blind person. I spoke to her carer, who gave me a chart of sign language. I took it home and I learnt the alphabet. I learnt simple words like hello and goodbye. Every kid except for this young, precious girl was learning about God's love for all people. And so by the end of the week, I was able to put my hand into her hand and slowly communicate to her these letters: G-O-D space L-O-V-E-S space Y-O-U. I'm sure there are people in your life that you may need to understand their culture. Jesus understood people and he understood their culture. His parables are laced with cultural references that his audience understood. Paul in Athens understood the culture that he was speaking into. Hudson Taylor, he prepared himself by learning the language, by learning a trade that would open up mission, and so he studied medicine. He physically prepared himself and he spiritually prepared himself in his faith and dependence on God. Second, go to them. Hudson Taylor was not only prepared before he went, he was also prepared to embark on a new type of mission to China. He went to the people. He said the Protestant missions in China had largely found themselves gathering in Western-controlled parts of China, or at least where there were a lot of Western influence. And they would begin to recreate little Western enclaves and invite people into those, to the churches that were based in there. And it was very much sort of, you come to us And Hudson Taylor breaks this mould and flips it on its head and says, no, the gospel is going to you. The success of Hudson Taylor in China is because he went into China. Isn't that what some of Jesus' last words were to us about? He said, go and make disciples of all nations. One of the lessons that we Christians can learn from the pandemic that we're all going through, these restrictions, where our church buildings have been basically closed, is the importance of going to people and not wait until they turn up at church. From Jesus' last words to today, the gospel has gone out because people have gone out and gone to the ends of the earth. Third, ordinary people were part of the extraordinary mission. We might know of the names of Hudson Taylor and C.D. Studd and be fooled into thinking that the mission into China was done by exceptional people, well-educated people. But this was not the case. Hudson Taylor was a big proponent of lay leaders and of women missionaries. Because he understood the culture, he knew that Chinese women were not going to hear the gospel from trained male pastors. The only way to truly reach the Chinese people was to mobilize women to take the gospel into the homes of Chinese women and their families. And even today, there are missionaries to China who are being trained as hairdressers. When they graduate, they are given the charge, now go in the name of Jesus Christ with these scissors to the ends of the earth.
I love one of the places where I've been meeting a group of young people who were training to be missionaries. And during the daytime, they were learning how to cut hair. And so they were getting a degree in hair cutting as barbers. But then in the evening at school, they would gather together and they would do Bible study. They were studying mission theory and evangelism, and then also a foreign language. In this case, they were studying Urdu together. And at graduation, they were handed a diploma that said, you are now certified in China to cut hair, and given a pair of scissors. But then they were also given sort of a silent charge that said, and now go in the name of Jesus Christ with these scissors to the ends of the earth. And the idea was, wherever you go, you can always find someone who needs a haircut. And that can buy enough rice for you to walk to the next town, and then to the next town, and to the next town, until you reach somewhere like Pakistan, where you can be a missionary for Jesus, cutting hair and sharing the good news.
We all hold something. It might not be scissors, but we all have skills and passions, knowledge, connections and talents. Some of us have a past. Let me tell you about a friend of mine named Bob Pryor. He and his family were members of my previous church in Canberra, and our two families had meals together. Between the ages of 18 to 25, Bob was an addict, and he was an addict gambler and an alcoholic. According to him, both don't go well together at all. When he had lost all his money and had hit rock bottom, he turned to God for help, which God came and did. So now Bob doesn't gamble at all, because anyone who gambled knows there's no such thing as an ex-addict, just an addict who's not doing it anymore. Bob's life turned around, and he became a Baptist pastor at Gundagai. Then in 2003, he became a sports chaplain. And now, since 2006, get this, Bob is a chaplain at the Canberra, Queanbeyan and Goulburn racing clubs. From his past, he knows the culture of racing and gambling and drinking, and therefore has helped so many people and has built up so much respect that just a couple of years ago, the National Jockeys Trust recognised his work by giving him a plaque and a donation to support his ongoing work. And in 2013, Thoroughbred Park in Canberra honoured Bob's work by renaming a one-day 8-race meet called the Pastor Bob Pryor Race Day. God can use your past And He can use your passions, your skills, your talents to His glory to reach people. Like these Chinese hairdressers, we are being told, now go in the name of Jesus to the ends of the earth.